Captain Jake Morrison stood at the main window of Earth Orbital Station Alpha 7 and watched the alien ship approach. The vessel looked like a giant crystal flower floating through space with soft blue lights pulsing along its petals. After 3 months of radio communications, the Zilari Confederation had finally agreed to meet face to face. Jake felt his heart beating faster as he thought about how this moment would change everything for humanity. Dr. Lisa Chang walked up, beside him carrying her tablet and checking the environmental readings one more time. The station had been prepared for weeks to make their guests comfortable. They had adjusted the lighting to be softer and painted the walls in calming colors. The air was fresh and clean and everything was spotless. Lisa had studied every piece of information the aliens had shared about their biology and culture. "All systems are green, Captain," Lisa said as she tucked a strand of black hair behind her ear. "The docking bay is pressurized and ready. I still think we should have lowered the gravity more, though. Our standard Earth gravity might be uncomfortable for them." Jake shook his head. "The engineering team said it would take too long to adjust the whole station. Besides, they said they could handle our gravity for a short visit." He straightened his blue dress uniform and checked his appearance in the window reflection. "How do I look?" "Like someone about to make history?" Lisa smiled. "Just remember to move slowly and speak clearly. Their translator devices work well, but they process our language differently than we do." Lieutenant Ben Parker jogged up the corridor toward them. His shoes made soft sounds on the metal floor as he slowed to a walk. "Captain, the alien ship has docked successfully. Security teams are in position but staying out of sight like you ordered. Maria has the emergency protocols ready just in case." "Good work, Ben." Jake nodded. "Remember, everyone, this is a peaceful meeting. We want to show them that humans can be trusted." The three of them walked to the main conference room where the meeting would take place. The room had large windows showing the curve of Earth below them. Blue oceans and white clouds swirled across the planet's surface. A long table sat in the center with comfortable chairs arranged around it. Water glasses and small snacks were placed at each seat. Jake felt a slight vibration through the floor as the docking tube connected. Somewhere on the other side of the station, the first aliens ever to visit human space were preparing to come aboard. He had dreamed of this moment since he was a child reading science fiction books. Now it was really happening. "Captain, they are ready to board," came the voice of Security Chief Maria Santos through his earpiece. 5 aliens total. They are wearing environmental suits, but their faces are visible through clear helmets. "Understood, Maria. Guide them to conference room 2. Jake took a deep breath and tried to calm his nerves. Everything had to go perfectly. The future relationship between humanity and the galactic community depended on the next few hours. He had read every first contact protocol manual and attended months of training for this moment. The door opened and Jake got his first look at a living alien. Ambassador Kethvar was tall and graceful like a deer walking on 2 legs. His skin was pale green and smooth. Crystal formations grew from his forehead like antlers, but they glowed with soft purple light. His large eyes were completely black and seemed to take in everything at once. Behind him came 4 other Zilari, each wearing similar environmental suits. Their crystal antlers showed different colors ranging from blue to white. They moved carefully as if the floor might break under their feet. Jake noticed they were breathing harder than normal. "Welcome to Earth Orbital Station Alpha 7, Jake said with his biggest smile. "I am Captain Jake Morrison and this is Dr. Lisa Chang, our chief xenobiologist. We are honored to meet you." Ambassador Kethavar stepped forward and his translator device made soft clicking sounds before speaking. "Greetings, Captain Morrison. I am Ambassador Kethavar of the Zilari Confederation. We bring peaceful intentions and hope for friendship between our peoples." The ambassador's crystal antlers suddenly flashed bright orange for just a moment. Jake wondered if that meant something important. Lisa had mentioned that Zilari crystals changed colors with their emotions, but the reports were not clear about what each color meant. "Please sit down and make yourselves comfortable," Jake said as he gestured to the chairs around the table. "We have prepared refreshments for you." The aliens looked at the chairs with what seemed like confusion. Ambassador Kethavar sat down very carefully as if the chair might collapse. The other aliens did the same. Jake noticed they kept their environmental suits sealed, even though the air was perfectly safe for them to breathe. Dr. Chang activated a holographic display showing Earth from space. "We thought you might like to see our homeworld from up here. It is quite beautiful from orbit." The aliens stared at the image and their crystal antlers began glowing brighter. One of them made a sound that the translator did not convert to human language. Ambassador Kethavar's antlers turned a deep red color. "Your world is very active," the ambassador said slowly. "We can see massive storm systems and volcanic activity. The surface appears to be mostly covered in the corrosive solvent you call water." Jake felt confused. Water is not corrosive. It is essential for all life on Earth. In fact, would you like some water to drink? He reached for one of the glasses on the table. All 5 aliens suddenly moved backward in their chairs. Their crystal antlers blazed with bright red light. Ambassador Kethavar held up his hands in what looked like a defensive gesture. "Please, Captain Morrison, do not bring that substance near us," the ambassador said with obvious fear in his voice. "Dihydrogen monoxide is extremely dangerous. It dissolves organic compounds and can cause severe chemical burns." Lisa looked at Jake with surprise. She had not expected this reaction to simple water. "Ambassador, I assure you that water is completely safe for humans. We drink it every day. Our bodies are mostly made of water." The aliens made more untranslated sounds and their antlers continued flashing red. One of the younger aliens stood up as if ready to run. Ambassador Kethavar spoke quickly to him in their own language and the young alien sat back down, but his antlers stayed bright red. "You consume dihydrogen monoxide regularly?" Ambassador Kethavar asked with obvious shock. "And your bodies contain large amounts of this solvent?" "Yes," Jake said, still feeling confused. "Water makes up about 60% of the human body. We need to drink it to survive." Ben Parker chose that moment to walk into the room carrying a tablet computer. He was moving at his normal walking speed, which for humans was quite ordinary, but to the aliens it must have looked impossibly fast. Ben did not notice them at first and accidentally bumped into a chair which started to fall over. Without thinking, Ben reached out and caught the falling chair with one hand. His reflexes were perfectly normal for a human, but the aliens could not track his movement. To them it looked like Ben had moved faster than their eyes could follow and caught a massive object with no effort. All 5 aliens jumped to their feet. Their environmental suits made warning sounds and their crystal antlers blazed with every color at once. Ambassador Kethavar backed against the wall while the others moved toward the door. "Please remain calm," Jake said as he stood up slowly. Lieutenant Parker was just helping with the equipment. He meant no harm. Ben looked around the room and finally noticed the terrified aliens. "Oh, sorry, Captain. I did not know the meeting had started." He set the chair down gently and stepped back. "I was just bringing the latest communication logs." "Your warrior moved with impossible speed and strength," Ambassador Kethavar said with his voice shaking. Are all humans capable of such reflexes? Jake felt more confused than ever. Ben is not a warrior. He is a communications officer, and that was just normal human reflexes. Anyone could have done the same thing. The aliens made more untranslated sounds. Their crystal antlers continued flashing different colors rapidly. Lisa realized that the meeting was going badly, but she did not understand why. "Perhaps we should talk about our cultures," she said in her most calming voice.
"We have prepared educational materials about human history and society. That would be..."
"Interesting," Ambassador Kethavar said, though his antlers remained bright orange. "But first we must ask about your station security protocols. What happens if there is an emergency?" "Well, we have standard safety procedures," Jake said. "In case of hull breach, we have emergency bulkheads and backup life support. If there is a fire, we have automated suppression systems. And if all else fails, we have escape pods. And if the station loses structural integrity, then we activate emergency explosive decompression to clear the affected sections." Ben answered helpfully. "It is just a small controlled explosion to prevent catastrophic failure." All 5 aliens moved closer to the door. Their crystal antlers had turned completely white, which Lisa was starting to think might be their version of pale with fear. "You use explosives as a safety measure?" Ambassador Kethavar asked quietly. "Only in extreme emergencies," Jake said quickly. "The charges are very small and carefully placed. It is really quite safe." The ambassador spoke rapidly to his companions in their own language. The younger aliens looked ready to run back to their ship immediately. Ambassador Kethavar's antlers flickered between white and red. "Captain Morrison, we happy." Ambassador Kethavar stood before the Grand Assembly of the Zalari Confederation on their homeworld sanctuary. The massive crystal chamber held representatives from dozens of species across the galaxy. Ancient trees grew through the floor and ceiling, creating a living cathedral of green and gold. Soft light filtered through crystalline walls as hundreds of alien eyes focused on him. His antlers had not stopped glowing orange since his return from human space 3 weeks ago. Every time he thought about the meeting, his crystals flashed brighter with remembered fear. The other ambassadors in the chamber noticed his distressed state and whispered among themselves. Honored representatives of the Galactic Council, Kethavar began with his voice echoing through the chamber. I bring disturbing news about the species known as humans. What I discovered during first contact challenges everything we thought we knew about life in the galaxy. Elder Mirath of the Aquatic Confederation raised one of her flowing tentacles. Her translator produced gentle bubbling sounds as she spoke. Ambassador Kethavar, your emotional crystals have been broadcasting distress for weeks. Surely no species could be as dangerous as your reports suggest. Kethavar activated the holographic display system, and images from his visit to the human station appeared above the assembly. The representative saw the blue and green world called Earth spinning slowly in space. Storm systems larger than entire continents swirled across the surface. Lightning flashed constantly through massive cloud formations. This is the human homeworld, Kethavar said as gasps echoed through the chamber. The surface is 70% covered in dihydrogen monoxide. The atmosphere contains 21% oxygen, which as you know is highly corrosive and reactive. The gravity is nearly twice what most species can survive. Dr. Vexhan of the Crystalline Collective stepped forward on her 6 legs. Her body was made of living crystal similar to Zalari antlers, but she could change her entire form. Ambassador, surely you are exaggerating. No intelligent species could evolve on such a hostile world. I thought the same thing, Kethavar replied as he changed the display to show recordings of the humans. But observe their physical structure. Notice how their eyes face forward like predators. See their teeth designed for tearing flesh. Their hands have evolved to grip and crush objects. The assembly watched as the recording showed Captain Morrison and his crew moving around their station. To the aliens, the humans looked impossibly strong and fast. When Lieutenant Parker caught the falling chair, it looked like magic to species that could barely lift their own body weight. They move in gravity that would crush most of us, Kethavar continued. They breathe atmosphere that would burn our respiratory systems. And they consume dihydrogen monoxide as their primary beverage. When I warned them about the dangers of this corrosive solvent, they told me their bodies are 60% made of the substance. Representative Takmar of the insectoid hives clicked his mandibles nervously. His compound eyes reflected the holographic images as he spoke. Perhaps they wear protective equipment or use genetic modifications to survive such conditions. No, Kethavar said, as his antlers flashed bright red. This is their natural state. They require no protection from their environment because they evolved to thrive in conditions that would kill us within minutes. But that is not the worst part. He changed the display to show human entertainment programs that his cultural team had intercepted from Earth broadcasts. The aliens in the assembly watched in horror as humans deliberately put themselves in dangerous situations for recreation. They saw humans jumping from aircraft with only fabric to slow their fall. They watched humans climb vertical rock faces using only their hands and feet. They seek out danger for pleasure, Kethavar said as his voice grew quieter. They have competitions where individuals attempt to physically harm each other. They race vehicles at speeds that would be fatal if they crashed. They dive into deep water and hold their breath until their bodies should shut down from lack of oxygen. The chamber filled with sounds of distress from dozens of species. Dr. Vexhan's crystal body turned deep purple with shock. Elder Mirath retreated into her protective shell. Even the massive rock-like beings, who were nearly indestructible, made rumbling sounds of concern. Show them the cultural analysis, whispered scientist Zarakol, who had traveled with Kethavar to human space. Kethavar nodded and activated new files. Our linguistic experts analyzed their entertainment media and historical records. Humans have survived multiple extinction-level events on their world. Asteroid impacts that would sterilize most planets only made them stronger. Ice ages that should have ended their civilization became opportunities for them to spread across their entire world. The display showed images of human cities built in impossible locations. Settlements existed in frozen wastelands where the temperature would freeze most species solid. Other cities thrived in desert heat that would cook alien flesh. Humans built homes on the edges of active volcanoes and in areas where the ground shook constantly from seismic activity. They do not flee from natural disasters, Kethavar continued. They adapt to them. When their environment tries to kill them, they change their behavior and continue living there. Their entire history is a story of survival against impossible odds. Counselor Brixtell of the Peaceful Federation stood up slowly. His elderly form shook as he spoke. Ambassador, what about their technology and weapons? Surely a species that lives in such conditions must be heavily armed. Their station security chief mentioned something called emergency explosive decompression, Kethavar said as his antlers turned white with fear. They use controlled explosions as a safety measure. When I asked about their defensive capabilities, the human captain seemed confused by the question. He acted as if their station had no weapons at all. Then how do they defend themselves? Asked Dr. Vexhun. I believe they do not think they need weapons, Kethavar replied. Their own bodies and reflexes are so dangerous that they consider themselves harmless. The human who moved faster than our eyes could track was described as an ordinary communications officer with no combat training. The assembly fell silent as the implications sank in. If regular humans were that physically capable, then their actual warriors would be beyond imagination. A species that considered explosive decompression a safety feature probably had weapons that could crack planets. Back on Earth, Captain Jake Morrison was reading reports from deep space monitoring stations. More and more alien ships had been detected at the edge of human space, but none had tried to make contact. The signals intelligence teams were picking up increased chatter on alien communication networks, but they could not decode most of it. Any word from Ambassador Kethavar? Jake asked Dr. Chang as she entered his office with her daily briefings. Nothing direct, Lisa replied as she sat down across from his desk. But we are detecting a lot of traffic between Zalari space and other alien civilizations. It looks like they are having meetings with multiple species. That is good news. Jake smiled. Maybe they are arranging for more first contact meetings. I hope we made a good enough impression that other species will want to visit us too. Lisa looked at her reports with a worried expression. Captain, I have been analyzing the recordings of our meeting with the Zalari delegation. I think something went wrong during the conversation. Their body language and color changes suggested they were afraid of us. Afraid of us, Jake laughed. Why would they be afraid? We were as peaceful and welcoming as possible. We showed them our safety protocols and offered them refreshments. I thought the meeting went perfectly. Maybe that was the problem, Lisa said quietly. What if our normal behavior seemed threatening to them? What if our gravity was too strong or our air pressure too high? What if offering them water seemed dangerous instead of friendly? Jake considered this possibility but shook his head. Lisa, you are overthinking this. The ambassador seemed very interested in learning about human culture and technology. If there had been a serious problem, he would have said something. Meanwhile, on the Zalari homeworld, the Galactic Council was voting on how to respond to the human situation. Some species wanted to establish a quarantine zone around human space. Others suggested sending military observers to assess the threat level. A few brave species expressed interest in attempting trade relationships despite the dangers. Ambassador Kethavar stood before the final assembly session with his prepared recommendations. His antlers had finally settled to a steady orange glow as he accepted the reality of what he had experienced. Honored representatives, he began. After extensive analysis of our encounter with the humans, I must make the following classification. The species known as humans are survivors of what can only be described as a Class 12 Deathworld. They have evolved beyond normal biological limits and possess capabilities that exceed galactic safety standards. He paused as worried sounds filled the chamber. However, I must also report that they showed no signs of aggression toward us. Their behavior was consistent with peaceful intentions despite their terrifying abilities. I recommend that we proceed with extreme caution, but maintain diplomatic contact. The vote was close, but the Council agreed to continue monitoring human space while preparing protocols for future contact. Trade would be restricted and military. Flozinger Nyatel floated in the central chamber of Neutral Space Station Harmony as she reviewed the preparations for what she hoped would be a successful cultural exchange. Her translucent blue body rippled with patterns of calm determination as water flowed through the specialized environment suit that kept her aquatic form stable in the artificial atmosphere. As the chief diplomat of the Aquatic Confederation, she had volunteered to host this meeting despite warnings from dozens of other species. The station had been specifically designed as neutral ground for interspecies meetings. The environmental controls could adjust to accommodate different atmospheric needs. and the artificial gravity could be modified for various physiologies. Nayatel believed that understanding could overcome fear and that proper preparation would prevent the problems that had occurred during the first human contact. Dr. Lisa Chang stepped off the human transport shuttle and looked around the docking bay with interest. The walls curved in flowing patterns that reminded her of underwater caves, and soft blue lights created a peaceful atmosphere. She carried her diplomatic bag containing carefully selected materials about human culture that had been reviewed by every xenobiology expert on Earth. Behind her came Dr. Alan Brooke, the cultural historian who had spent months preparing presentations about human civilization. He had chosen examples that he thought would show humans in the most positive light possible. His gray hair was neatly trimmed, and he wore his best formal suit for this important meeting. Engineer Kelly Price brought up the rear of the small human delegation, carrying a case of what she considered harmless examples of human technology. The items had been selected to demonstrate human creativity and problem-solving abilities without seeming threatening. She had no idea that her definition of harmless was very different from what most alien species would consider safe. "Welcome to Station Harmony," Nayatel said through her translator device as the humans entered the main meeting chamber. Her voice sounded like flowing water mixed with musical tones. "I am Flowzinger Nayatel of the Aquatic Confederation. We are honored to host this cultural exchange." The chamber contained representatives from 6 different species, all seated around a circular table designed to put everyone at equal height. Each alien had their own environmental support system, and the room maintained different atmospheric zones to keep everyone comfortable. Dr. Chang noted how much effort had gone into making this meeting work. "Thank you for this opportunity," Dr. Chang said with a warm smile. "We hope this exchange will help build understanding between our peoples. We have brought materials to share about human history and culture." The alien representatives looked nervous despite the careful preparations. A crystalline being named Researcher Vixtal clinked softly as she moved in her specially designed chair. 2 insectoid delegates clicked their mandibles quietly while watching the humans with compound eyes. Even the massive rock-like entity seemed to be holding very still, as if afraid to make sudden movements. Dr. Brooke activated his holographic presentation system and began with what he thought was an inspiring overview of human achievement. "Humanity has overcome many challenges throughout our history. We have survived ice ages that lasted thousands of years. We adapted when massive volcanic eruptions blocked out the sun for decades. When asteroids struck our planet, we rebuilt our civilizations from the ruins." The alien representatives made various sounds of distress as their universal translators processed this information. Researcher Vixtal's crystalline body began glowing bright yellow, which Dr. Chang was learning meant extreme concern in many species. The insectoids pressed themselves back in their chairs as if trying to get as far from the humans as possible. "You have survived multiple extinction events," Nayatel asked, with her water pattern showing rapid fluctuations. "Your species continued to exist after planet-wide catastrophes that should have ended all life." "Well, yes," Dr. Brooke said proudly. "Humans are very adaptable. We learned to survive in Arctic conditions during ice ages, and we developed agriculture after volcanic winters destroyed our natural food sources. Every challenge made us stronger and more resourceful." One of the insectoid delegates made a sound that the translator could not convert. The other alien quickly spoke to him in their native language while both of their antennae twitched rapidly. Dr. Chang was starting to realize that their proud history of survival was being interpreted very differently by the aliens. "Perhaps we should discuss human technology," Engineer Kelly said as she opened her case of demonstration items. "We brought some examples of tools that humans use in daily life." She pulled out what she considered a simple multi-tool and began explaining its various functions. The aliens watched with growing horror as she demonstrated how the device could cut through metal, extend into a knife blade, create sparks for starting fires, and perform a dozen other functions that they considered weapon capabilities. "Most humans carry devices like this," Kelly said cheerfully. "They are very useful for solving everyday problems. This particular model also has emergency medical supplies built into the handle." Researcher Vixtal's glow shifted to bright red as she processed this information. "You say most humans carry weapons of this sophistication for routine daily tasks?" Kelly looked confused by the question. "Well, I would not call it a weapon. It is just a tool. Most human homes have dozens of similar items. We use them for cooking, repairs, gardening, and maintenance work. The alien representatives began making agitated sounds, and several of them started moving toward the exits. Nyatel held up her tentacles in what her species used as a calming gesture while her water patterns showed increasing distress. "Please, remain calm, everyone," she said, though her own translator was having trouble with the emotional variations in her voice. "Let us continue learning about human culture in a peaceful manner." Dr. Chang realized that the meeting was going wrong, but she could not understand why basic human tools were causing such extreme reactions. She tried to shift the conversation to what she thought would be safer ground. "We would like to share information about human medicine," she said in her most soothing voice. "Humans have developed very advanced medical treatments that might be interesting to other species." She activated another holographic display showing human surgical procedures and medical interventions. The aliens watched in absolute shock as the images showed humans deliberately cutting into living bodies to repair damage and injecting foreign substances directly into their bloodstreams. "You intentionally damage living tissue as a form of healing?" asked one of the insectoids through rapid clicking sounds. "We call it surgery," Dr. Chang explained. "When humans are injured or sick, we can open their bodies to fix internal problems. We also use controlled chemicals to fight infections and prevent diseases. Human medicine has extended our lifespans significantly." The rock-like being made a grinding sound that shook the entire chamber. Through his translator, he asked, "You inject toxins and mutilate living flesh, and this is considered beneficial?" "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds bad," Dr. Chang said with growing concern. "But surgical procedures save millions of human lives every year. The chemicals we use are carefully tested and measured to help not harm." Nyatel's water patterns had turned completely chaotic as she tried to maintain order in the meeting. Several alien species were now standing and moving toward the exits while others seemed frozen in shock. The carefully planned cultural exchange was turning into another disaster. Dr. Brooke tried to help by explaining human child-rearing practices. "Human children are taught to be independent and resourceful from an early age. We train them to solve problems and protect themselves from danger." "You teach your offspring to fight?" asked researcher Vixtal with her glow pulsing between red and white. "We teach them to be safe," Dr. Brooke replied. "Human children learn basic self-defense and how to recognize dangerous situations. They are taught to be brave and to help others when needed." This explanation only made things worse. Most alien species protected their young by teaching them to hide or flee from danger. The idea of training children to confront threats was completely alien to their psychology. To them, it sounded like humans were raising armies of tiny warriors. "Engineer." Kelly tried to demonstrate what she thought was a harmless human toy, but when she activated the device, it made loud electronic sounds and flashed bright lights. The aliens interpreted this as some kind of sonic weapon, and several species immediately triggered their emergency evacuation protocols. "Please wait," Dr. Chang called out as the alien representatives fled the chamber. "We are not trying to threaten anyone. These are normal parts of human culture." But it was too late. Nyatel was the only alien who remained in the chamber, and her water patterns showed complete exhaustion. Her faith in peaceful understanding had been shaken by the revelation that humans considered weapons training, surgical mutilation, and chemical injection to be routine parts of civilized life. "Perhaps this exchange has provided enough information for today," she said diplomatically. "We will need time to process what we have learned about human culture." The three humans looked at each other with confusion and disappointment. They had tried so hard to present humanity in the best possible light, but somehow everything they shared seemed to... Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the ESV Pioneer Humanity's first interstellar exploration vessel as it approached the Kepler Station trading post. The massive structure floated in the neutral zone between three different star systems and served as a hub for interstellar commerce. Jake had been looking forward to this visit as their first chance to interact with multiple alien species in a relaxed commercial environment. "Captain, we are receiving a priority transmission from Station Control," reported Communications Officer Danny Lee from his position at the sensor station. "They are requesting detailed information about our crew-size weapons loadout and defensive capabilities." "That seems like an unusual request for a trading station," Jake said with a puzzled expression. "Tell them we are a peaceful exploration vessel with standard defensive systems and a crew of 47 humans." Danny worked at his console for several minutes before looking up with concern. Sir, they are asking us to maintain a minimum distance of 50 kilometers from the station. They say they need time to prepare appropriate safety protocols. Dr. Lisa Chang, who had joined the Pioneer as Chief Science Officer, walked onto the bridge carrying her tablet. Captain, I have been monitoring alien communication channels, and there seems to be a lot of chatter about our approach. Multiple species are requesting emergency evacuations from the station. Evacuations, Jake repeated with growing confusion. Why would anyone need to evacuate because we want to trade with them? We sent all the proper diplomatic credentials weeks ago. On the hive mind collective world of Nexus Prime, Drone Queen Zakth was experiencing the most disturbing neural cast of her long life. Her species shared thoughts and emotions across their entire civilization through telepathic links that connected billions of individuals. Usually, this created a peaceful, harmonious consciousness that valued cooperation above all else, but today the shared mental space was filled with chaotic images and emotions from the few hive mind individuals who had encountered humans at various locations across the galaxy. The raw power of human emotional states was overwhelming to species that experienced feelings as gentle shared experiences. Human emotions blazed through their mental networks like fires consuming everything in their path. The Deathworld species feels too intensely, Zakth broadcasted to her collective through pulsing antenna signals. Their individual minds burn with such fierce emotions that they disrupt our communal consciousness. Fear, anger, joy, love, all of their feelings are amplified beyond safe levels for telepathic contact. The shared response from billions of hive mind individuals was unanimous terror. If humans could accidentally damage their mental networks just by existing nearby, then direct contact would be impossible. The collective voted to classify all human space as a telepathic hazard zone and warned other psychic species to avoid contact. Meanwhile, at the Merchant Guild headquarters, on Prosperity Station, trade leader Toscaron was reviewing the latest intelligence reports about human commercial activities. His forearms moved rapidly as he sorted through data files that painted an increasingly disturbing picture of human consumer habits. They consume ethanol voluntarily, he said to his assistant while his trunk-like nose curled with disgust. This substance is classified as a dangerous solvent by 17 different species, and humans drink it for recreational purposes. His assistant clicked her claws nervously as she pulled up more files. Sir, the reports also indicate that humans regularly consume caffeine, which is listed as a combat stimulant in our pharmaceutical databases. The amounts they ingest daily would kill most species, but humans seem to require it for normal cognitive function. Toscaron leaned back in his chair and considered the implications. If humans could safely consume substances that were toxic to other species, then their biology was even more dangerous than anyone had realized. He immediately issued a guild-wide bulletin warning merchants to avoid trading consumable goods with humans until proper safety testing could be completed. Back on the Pioneer, Jake was reading reports from their long-range sensors that showed dozens of alien vessels maintaining unusual distances from human ships throughout the sector. Every attempt at friendly contact had been met with polite but firm requests to keep their distance. Trading posts would accept human cargo transfers only through automated systems, and no alien crew members would board human vessels. Captain, I think I am starting to understand the problem, Dr. Chang said as she joined him in his ready room. I have been analyzing the cultural exchange reports, and I believe we have been consistently misinterpreting alien reactions to normal human behavior. What do you mean? Jake asked as he poured himself a cup of coffee and offered one to Lisa. For example, when we offered water to the Zalari delegation, we thought we were being hospitable. Lisa explained as she accepted the coffee, but to them offering dihydrogen monoxide was like offering poison. When Lieutenant Parker caught that falling chair, his reflexes seemed impossibly fast to beings who evolved in low-gravity environments. Jake sipped his coffee and considered this explanation. So you think they are afraid of us because we are physically different? I think they are afraid of us because everything about human existence violates their understanding of what is biologically possible, Lisa said. We live on a world that would kill most species. We consume substances they consider toxic. We move faster and stronger than they can comprehend. From their perspective, we must seem like living weapons. Dr. Alan Brooke had continued his cultural research even after the failed exchange at Station Harmony. He was determined to find a way to present human civilization that would not terrify alien species. But every aspect of human culture that he examined seemed to reinforce their reputation as dangerous beings. He had written what he thought was a friendly introduction to human recreational activities. The document explained how humans enjoyed challenging themselves with difficult physical activities like mountain climbing, deep-sea diving, and extreme sports. To alien readers, this sounded like humans actively sought out ways to die and somehow survived experiences that should be fatal. His section on human dietary habits described omnivorous eating patterns and explained how humans could digest both plant and animal matter. Most galactic species were specialized feeders who could only process very specific types of nutrition. The idea of beings who could eat almost anything was terrifying to species who might themselves be considered food. Even human art and entertainment seemed threatening when viewed from alien perspectives. Stories about human heroes overcoming impossible odds sounded like training manuals for unstoppable warriors. Music and films that celebrated human achievements looked like propaganda, designed to inspire a warrior culture. The situation reached a critical point when the cargo vessel ESV Merchant encountered a disabled alien ship in deep space. Captain Ruth Davis ordered her crew to offer assistance despite the fact that the alien vessel was trying to broadcast distress signals, warning them to stay away. The alien ship belonged to the Voidclaw pirate syndicate who had been raiding merchant vessels in that sector for months. When they saw a human ship approaching, they expected an easy target. Their battle computers indicated that the human vessel was lightly armed and outnumbered 3-1. But when the pirates opened fire, they discovered that human ships were built to withstand conditions that would destroy most alien vessels. The merchant's hull plating was designed to handle micrometeor impacts at high speeds and could easily absorb the pirates' energy weapons. The human crew responded to the attack with tactical efficiency that shocked their attackers. Lieutenant Commander Sam Torres led the defensive response with the kind of calm professionalism that humans considered routine, but aliens found terrifying. The crew worked together under stress with coordination that seemed impossible to species who panicked when faced with unexpected situations. Within minutes, the pirate vessel had been disabled and their crew was requesting mercy. "Human vessel, this is Pirate Commander Scarthak," came the transmission from the disabled ship. "We surrender unconditionally and request safe passage to the nearest neutral port. We did not know you were Deathworlders or we never would have attacked." Captain Davis accepted their surrender and provided emergency repairs to their life support systems. She had no idea that her act of mercy only reinforced the growing legend about humans. The pirates spread word throughout the criminal underground that humans were so dangerous that they would defeat enemies and then save their lives out of casual kindness. The recording of the battle was transmitted across dozens of alien communication networks. Species after species watched as humans fought more effectively under pressure and showed impossible resilience when damaged. The fact that they had offered help to disabled pirates before the attack began only made them seem more unpredictable and dangerous. By the time the Pioneer reached Kepler Station, the entire facility had been cleared except for automated systems and a few brave volunteers who communicated only through remote channels. Jake finally began to understand that humanity's reputation had grown far beyond anything they had intended. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the station administrator," Danny reported. "They are willing to conduct limited trade negotiations, but all human personnel must The Grand Assembly Chamber of the Galactic Council had never hosted such an important emergency session. Representatives from over 200 species filled the vast crystalline hall on the neutral world of Concordia. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering that could adjust its environment to accommodate dozens of different atmospheric and gravitational needs simultaneously. Ambassador Keith Varr stood at the central podium with his antlers glowing a steady orange, color that indicated resigned acceptance. Around him sat the most powerful beings in the galaxy, all gathered to decide the fate of humanity. The debate had been raging for 3 days, with species after species sharing increasingly dramatic accounts of human encounters. Elder Council member Zafara of the Ancient Collective raised her crystalline hand to call for order. Her species had existed for millions of years and had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. We have heard extensive testimony about the human species. The question before us is simple. Do we classify them as a restricted dangerous species, or do we attempt formal diplomatic relations? And the evidence is overwhelming, declared war leader Thokran of the Militant Federation, while his scaled hide changed color with agitation. These beings have evolved beyond normal biological limits. They survive in conditions that would kill our strongest warriors. Their casual behavior includes activities that our military considers advanced combat training. Representative Fluxara of the Energy Collective flickered with worried patterns as she spoke through electromagnetic pulses. My people have monitored human communication networks. Their entertainment media celebrates violence and conflict resolution through physical force. They appear to have no concept of peaceful coexistence. But Dr. Vexhan of the Crystalline Collective had been conducting her own research, and her findings painted a different picture. Her crystal body glowed with calm blue light as she stepped forward to address the assembly. Honored colleagues, I have spent months analyzing actual human behavior, rather than simply reacting to their capabilities, she said while her voice resonated through the chamber. Yes, humans are physically dangerous by our standards, but observe their actions rather than their potential for destruction. She activated holographic displays that showed recordings from dozens of human encounters with alien species. In every single contact situation, humans have offered assistance to disabled vessels regardless of species. They have provided medical aid to aliens even when those aliens were attempting to avoid them. When attacked by pirates, they defended themselves but then immediately offered rescue services to their attackers. The assembly grew quiet as they watched the recordings. Time after time, the evidence showed humans going out of their way to help alien beings who were obviously afraid of them. Ships that could have simply ignored distress calls instead risked their own safety to provide assistance. Furthermore, Dr. Vexhan continued, I have analyzed the human colonies and space installations. Despite their reputation for violence, their crime rates are remarkably low. Their military forces are primarily used for disaster relief and rescue operations. They have conflicts among themselves, but these are typically resolved through negotiation rather than warfare. Ambassador Kethvar felt his antlers brightening slightly as he considered this perspective. Dr. Vexhan, are you suggesting that we have misinterpreted human intentions? I am suggesting that we have been so focused on what humans could do that we ignored what they choose to do, she replied. Yes, they are capable of incredible destruction, but they consistently choose protection and cooperation instead. At that moment, a priority communication arrived from the edge of the galaxy. Captain Jake Morrison aboard the ESV Pioneer had requested permission to address the Galactic Council directly. The request had been transmitted through proper diplomatic channels and included formal assurances of peaceful intentions. Elder Council member Zephyra considered the request carefully. The human captain offers to answer any questions we might have about his species. He promises to comply with any safety protocols we require. It could be a trap, muttered war leader Thokran, though his conviction seemed less certain than before. What kind of trap? Involves one ship approaching a gathering of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy? Dr. Vexhan asked with amusement in her crystalline voice. The council voted to allow Captain Morrison to present humanity's case. The ESV Pioneer was permitted to approach Concordia under heavy escort, with the understanding that any aggressive action would result in immediate destruction. Jake had no idea that hundreds of warships were tracking his every movement as he prepared for the most important presentation in human history. The council chamber was reconfigured to accommodate human environmental needs. The atmospheric pressure was adjusted, the lighting was modified, and the gravity was set to Earth normal in a small section near the podium. Most alien representatives wore protective equipment or observed from shielded areas. Captain Jake Morrison entered the chamber, accompanied by Dr. Lisa Chang and a new addition to their diplomatic team. Communications specialist Amy Foster had been selected specifically for her calm demeanor and her extensive training in xenocultural psychology. She had spent weeks preparing for this moment. Honored representatives of the Galactic Council, Jake began while his voice was transmitted through dozens of universal translators simultaneously. I stand before you today not as a representative of a dangerous species, but as someone who hopes to be your neighbor and friend. The sight of an actual human speaking directly to them sent waves of nervous energy through the assembly. Jake appeared completely relaxed and confident, despite being surrounded by hundreds of potentially hostile aliens. To many species, this kind of calm in a threatening situation seemed like evidence of supreme combat readiness. We know that our species has developed a reputation that concerns many of you. Jake continued. We understand that our physical capabilities and cultural practices seem frightening from your perspective. But I want you to know that humans value peace and cooperation above all else. Dr. Chung stepped forward with her presentation materials. We have brought evidence of human civilization that we hope will address your concerns. Our cities are built around principles of mutual support and community cooperation. Our governments exist to protect and serve their populations rather than to wage war. Foster activated displays showing human, charitable organizations, disaster relief efforts, and international cooperation programs. When natural disasters strike human communities, people from around the world immediately volunteer to help. We have organizations dedicated to feeding the hungry, providing medical care to the sick, and protecting those who cannot protect themselves. The alien representatives watched these presentations with growing amazement. The humans were not describing a warrior culture focused on domination and conquest. Instead, they were showing a civilization that had developed advanced capabilities but chose to use them for protection and assistance. But why do you train your children to fight? Asked researcher Vixtel, whose crystal body was glowing with cautious curiosity. We teach our children to be strong and independent, so they can help others, Amy replied. Human children learn self-defense not to harm people, but to protect themselves and their communities. We want them to be confident enough to stand up for those who need help. And your medical practices that involve cutting and injection, Dr. Chang smiled as she explained. Surgery and medicine exist because humans refuse to accept that injuries and diseases cannot be healed. We develop these techniques because we value life so highly that we will do whatever is necessary to save people. The questions continued for hours as the alien representatives tried to reconcile their fears with the reality of human culture. Slowly, the picture that emerged was not of a species of unstoppable warriors, but of beings who had become strong because they cared deeply about protecting others. Elder Council Member Zephyra finally called for a vote. The question before us is whether humanity should be welcomed into the galactic community with appropriate safety protocols or whether they should be classified as too dangerous for normal diplomatic relations. The vote was close, but the final decision was to establish formal diplomatic ties with humanity. Earth would be classified as a restricted environmental zone due to its dangerous conditions, but humans would be welcome throughout the galaxy, as long as they followed standard safety guidelines. Captain Morrison felt overwhelmed with relief and gratitude as the council announced their decision. Thank you for giving us this chance. Humans have always believed that our greatest strength comes not from our ability to survive alone, but from our connections with others. Ambassador Kethavar approached the human delegation after the formal session ended. His antlers were glowing with warm yellow light for the first time since his original encounter with humans. Captain Morrison, I believe I owe your species an apology. We were so afraid of your power that we did not see your heart. No apology necessary, Ambassador, Jake replied with a genuine smile. Fear of the unknown is perfectly natural. We just hope that understanding can replace fear as we get to know each other better. Dr. Vexen joined the conversation with her crystal body pulsing with excited patterns. Captain, I would very much like